Well, it's time for this week's Goofy Award. And I'm going to start with this. The Cambridge Dictionary defines arrogance as unpleasantly proud and behaving as if you know more or are more important than other people. Why am I talking about it? Because that's the word that comes to mind when I hear the constant harangue of politicians who act as if, man, they're delivering the modern version of Sermon on the Mount and telling us what's fair and what's not. Of course, we've been getting a heaping helping of that recently with talking about the rise in the capital gains exemption rate from the prime minister and the finance minister, talking all about it's not fair that upper income people, or they call them the wealthy, aren't paying their fair share of taxes. Now, come on. They act as if the word fair is not highly subjective. Instead, it's like an absolute according to their wishes. Or to put it in the Cambridge Dictionary terms, they behave as if they know more or are more important than the rest of us. I mean, it's meant to manipulate us, but it's also insulting. It's disrespectful to suggest that individuals can't decide for themselves what's fair and what's not. Now, it's not a new tactic. I mean, it's been used by politicians for years to rationalize more government intervention. It's kind of like the essence of socialism, where if the outcomes aren't equal, then something's wrong. But they have to not take into account work ethic or talent or any other variable that produces an outcome. Instead, the government has to intervene. Now, I got to be full disclosure here. I don't need a politician to tell me what's fair and what's not. Now, you can decide for yourself if you think, for example, the top 10% of income earners who pay well over half of all income collected is fair or not. You can decide whether it's fair that the average Canadian family gives all it earns to government for the whole part of the year right up to June 13th before it starts working for itself. You can decide if passing on record debts, interest payments on that debt to younger generations is fair. I mean, obviously the government does, its supporters do, but that's their prerogative. But the question is, what do you think? Do you think it's fair that during the pandemic, members of parliament voted themselves three raises? They did it April 1st, 2020, 21, 22 during the pandemic. Oh, they didn't stop there. They also voted themselves a raise in 23, 24. Do you think that's fair when the rest of us are struggling and so many Canadians really having a tough time? Was it fair that on a 6-day trip to Asia, as we found out this week, Prime Minister took it last year with his son Xavier, a regular entourage of politicos that could be as much as 72 on some legs of the trip to as low as 37. But here's the thing. Was it fair that they could spend $223,234 tax dollars in-flight catering alone? I mean, come on, that is the equivalent of what 1,734 Canadians spend in a week on food. I mean, is it fair that, led by the NDP Liberal government, MPs have decided to close down Parliament this week for 13 weeks? I mean, which for the majority is kind of a nice long paid vacation, paid for by taxpayers. I don't think many of us get that. My point is that government MPs or any MPs are hardly the ones to be lecturing us on what's fair. But if you need the received wisdom of the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister and other members of government or any politician to explain that to you, well, so be it. Meanwhile, you got to forgive me. I find it nauseating.